Welcome to A Place for Film, the IU Cinema podcast. On this week's episode, we're reviewing film festivals. All right, hello everyone. Welcome to the show. My name is Andy Hunsucker.
And I'm Jason Thompson.
And on this week's show, we are talking about the two film festivals that we've that they've been kind enough to invite us to, the Chicago Film Festival and the Heartland Film Festival.
Yes.
They kind of overlapped a little bit. One we went to, one we did not go to, but we saw lots of movies from. So we're going to talk about both of those.
So there you go.
I want to talk about one other thing before we get into film festivals.
Okay.
We are available in a new place, Jason.
We are.
We signed up for this service called Stitcher.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea is we're available like through iTunes, and that's like one of the places that we can, that's sort of like the big place. Like everyone goes to iTunes to get podcasts. But the Stitcher thing is really cool. You can get it on your phone, and it streams right through your phone. And you can, it's iOS and Android. You can get it on like Kindle Fire and stuff like that too. And I read that you can even get it on like car stereos.
Car stereos, yeah.
Yeah, so like you can listen to us in the car now. If your car's fancy enough, I think. So that's available, and you can check us out, Stitcher.com, and Stitcher like you're stitching like that, and check us out on there. And
or if you're listening, like sewing,
exactly,
stitching.
If you're stitching,
because they can't.
It doesn't come with any. I don't know if it comes with sewing machines or not. It could be a new marketing plan.
They
for
could
Stitcher.
put it on all the Singer sewing machines.
That's true.
And all the older income households, I guess, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe that's just what they...
That's our new market.
Works for me.
So check us out on there, Stitcher.com, and that's a new place for you to find us. And tell your friends. Just tell your friends anyways.
Yeah. Either way.
Yeah. So let's talk about Heartland. The Heartland Film Fest overlapped with Chicago. So Jason, you and I did not actually go to the Heartland Film Festival.
We did not.
But... Sarah, you did actually go up
it.
there. So what was the atmosphere of the festival like?
Well, I chose, it was kind of weird because it was all over town and everywhere. So you really had to make decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I want to see these movies, but it's on this side of town and I'm going to have 20 minutes to get over here. So I've got to narrow this down. And then once you're in a standby line, you're just...
Yeah.
What were those options again?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I just stuck to one theater and tried to make it simple and only got to see two. But it was nice. It was really nice. I think there were a lot of people. It was at the AMC at Castleton, and I think a lot of people were there for Heartland. I saw a lot of people in lines when I'm in the standby line, so it was really nice. I got to see Starry, Starry Night. It's a Korean film. It was really good. It was a family-friendly type movie. It's about a young girl whose mother studied art. So every year they do a jigsaw puzzle. And one of she's doing it by herself this year because her parents are having problems. And one of the pieces is missing. They sort of use that as a metaphor through the whole thing. And then when her life starts really falling apart, she goes into like imaginary scenes. And so her picture of her family is all a jigsaw puzzle. And then it starts falling apart in her hands. So I really like the transitions that they had between kind of real life and fantasy world. At some point, she's walking down the street, and all these like origami animals that she's learned how to create are following behind her. And it's like a zoo of origami going down this walk. Yeah. It was really nice. I thought it was a little bit slow for me. It's like one of those movies you could have shaved off a little bit of time. I'd say at least 30 minutes, and it still would have been full of content. And then I saw Free Samples. I think you said you caught that one.
Yeah, I saw that one.
I liked it. I think mainly because I kind of identify with the girl. She's just full of disdain and angry the entire film.
Yeah.
And it's more like she's giving out free samples of her disposition instead of like free samples of the ice cream.
I like that reading of it.
Yeah.
That is a good way of putting it. I tried to think of a way of describing it, but that's definitely the way to do it. I guess in a nutshell, if you guys don't mind, she takes over sort of imagine like a food truck, but as an ice cream truck, not like your traditional goes around the neighborhood and sells it to children. It's just kind of like it's set up somewhere and people come to it and they get free samples of this ice cream. Well, she takes it over for a friend, and obviously doesn't want to do it, but she does it anyways. And there's sort of this cast of characters that come along, people either from the neighborhood or just random people, and they want samples, and all they have is the option between vanilla and chocolate. And some people kind of want both. Some people want one. Some people want the other. And they get delivered in a very interesting way, one way or the other, whether or not she decides they are worthy of the ice cream, I feel like. And there's a lot more to it. And the way what I wrote as a note was that it uses comedy to mask the main issue up until it wants to just hit you with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which it really only does, I think, in the last 5 minutes of the movie. It sort of reveals itself a little bit, and then you get sort of, the reason why she's mentioning this guy over and over and over, and then bam.
Yeah, it's Chekhov's gun.
It's right there in front of you. It's a fun movie. I think it has I think some people wouldn't like the character's payoff at the end. I think some people may see it as sort of...
It's a little anticlimactic.
It was a little anticlimactic, I think, in the sense if you're expecting more from it, I think is maybe the way, because I really liked it, because it's really interesting. It happens, and then she, as the character, has to decide if she's going to continue to, feel the way she's feeling about everything, which she's allowing this one thing to control every emotion she's ever had for the last who knows how long, or she can just start fresh. And you see her make that decision, and I really like the way she chose that decision.
Does come to terms, but it lasts for like 2 seconds. You really get just a glimpse, there at the end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so, of course, this is the movie with Jesse Eisenberg.
Yes.
Out of kind of like, oh, there's Jesse Eisenberg.
Yeah, because he shows up, you're watching, he's in the very first scene, and you're like, that's a weird cameo, but okay, cool. And then he shows up like halfway through the film, and you're like, oh, is he like actually in this movie? Is he like...
And then, of course, Jason Ritter.
Yeah.
He's in it. He's really funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's really funny.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed his character. And again, he's just one of those characters that's like kind of at the beginning of the movie, shows up in the middle, and you're good to go.
Yeah, and Jess Weixler is the main character, who I think I mentioned this. I've just seen her in she's like, she must be in like 1,000 movies that I haven't seen, because I've seen her in so many movies that I've just randomly watched at festivals over the past few months. But she's gonna be big because she carries this whole movie.
Yeah.
She's in every single scene of this movie. The whole movie is just about her, essentially. And it's nice that Jesse Eisenberg and Jason Ritter show up to like help her out. Yeah. But the whole movie, she's in every single scene.
She definitely carries it.
It takes a kind of special actor to be able to do that. So, yeah.
I liked it. I would recommend it.
Yeah, I would too.
It's a very indie movie, though.
Yeah.
Like that's what I
liked about it.
Yeah. I have people that, I think this was the first of the Heartland screeners I watched. Mm-hmm. I had like a number to choose from, and I was just like, and I don't remember hearing anything about it. I didn't realize it was the Jesse Eisenberg movie, and then he showed up, and I was like, whoa, Jesse Eisenberg, just like you were. My wife did watch this one with me, and she really liked it too.
Yeah.
So
I said we didn't go, but we did watch a lot of screeners. Heartland was very generous with the screeners with us. So
it made the process so much easier. And of course, we do like to go to the festivals.
Yes. It just happened this way. I think next year we'll plan it out a little bit better, so we'll have a bigger presence there. But so I talked about a bunch of these. I interviewed some of the directors of some of these. So I did a big long interview with the director of Atomic States of America before the festival. So I'm not going to talk about that one again. You guys, Jason, if you saw it, you can talk
that was
about
the second one I watched. I don't know how I feel about this movie. I do realize what the movie is trying to do. It's obviously based on material that doesn't look at atomic energy in a positive light.
Yeah.
And that's okay. As long as it sets it up that way, which I think it didn't quite do. It didn't do it as much as I thought it should have, especially if it's based on material that already exists. It kind of was like, I believe it's based on a book, is it not?
No, I don't think it's based on. Oh well, what led them to the story was a book that someone wrote, but it's not like it's not about.
Well, I think it's
not the same story that the book.
But I mean, it's based on the book that the female lead. I guess you could say lead.
I guess you could say it's inspired by. Okay. But yeah.
Anyways, I felt like it came off as like we've talked about this before, where documentaries, like I like a documentary that kind of just lets me make up my own mind about it, whereas I felt like this movie was just kind of like bad, 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 bad. It's all bad.
See, I went into it thinking it was going to be that, and I didn't find it that way at all. I found it to be a lot more even-handed than I expected it to be. And
okay,
so,
see, and I guess I didn't see it that way.
Yeah.
I really don't know what to expect.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's interesting to watch. I think it's definitely, worth watching, even if you go into it thinking that my opinion of it being bad is true, or if it's not,
Yeah. I mean, I think it's hard to come out of the film at the end thinking you know what the perspective of the film is at the end of it. You're not left with like, well, I guess I could think this way, or I guess I could think that way. It's like it definitely has a perspective.
Yeah.
But
that's not a bad thing. I just was kind of like,
I guess what I feel like is they presented enough evidence to earn that perspective.
Right, and I had no problem with that. I think maybe the reason why I'm coming off of it in such a negative fashion was that I felt like the movie was too long.
Oh, okay.
I thought maybe it was a little too long. And one thing I wish they would do for just a mainstream audience is explain how nuclear energy works or doesn't work.
Yeah.
I feel like they explained how it doesn't work enough, but in order to explain how it doesn't work, you need to probably explain how an actual nuclear reactor works. And they kind of do in a sense. But honestly, if you have to give us a 5-minute like high school film presentation of like nuclear energy, like show us one of the old ones. I mean, those obviously are showing like what they weren't lying to people.
Yeah.
They just maybe were lying about how bad it was for you.
Yeah.
So I don't know. And one of the interesting things about the movie is that like Alec Baldwin just shows up and is very angry about nuclear energy.
Yeah.
And it's just like,
That was a little weird.
That's a little strange. Like you've got this cast and crew of people that maybe, are well known in a certain circle, and then it's just like, bam, we got this big star to talk about how pissed off he is about nuclear energy.
Yeah.
And it's like, you just seem very angry about this. You're not going to punch the camera, are you? So I think you're right though, Andy. When you say it that way, it makes a lot of sense. Like it does earn sort of the reaction that maybe the movie was going for. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I think maybe it was the length of the movie. I was kind of like, okay, I get it. Like just when is this gonna, be over? I get what your point is. So I don't know. I don't know if you could shave anything off of it because everything in there was interesting. It just was maybe longer than I was expecting. I don't know.
Okay. So let me talk about one that I have not talked about yet. How about Mariachi Gringo, which has one of the best titles of a film. Yeah. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a gringo, which in Spanish slang is like an American or a white person or non-Mexican. Yeah. I don't know exactly what they would consider it to mean, but it's one of those things. And it's the guy, remember the X-Men movies, the guy who played Iceman?
Oh, yeah.
It's him.
Oh, okay.
Now, he has a twin brother, so I wasn't sure if it was him.
He's not playing Iceman in this.
No.
Okay.
No. So that guy has a twin brother. I wasn't sure if it was him or his twin brother. I looked it up. It was the guy who was in the X-Men films. And it's basically about this guy from Kansas, and he goes to this Mexican restaurant, and what the guy who runs it is like walking around doing like a mariachi thing, and he just gets fascinated with it. And he like befriends this old guy, and they're like he like goes and talks to the guy, and like he wants to learn how to be a mariachi. And so the guy who's sort of training him to be a mariachi, it's almost like a sort of like a Jedi thing, where it's like the guy like gets injured, and so now he's like very committed to being a mariachi. He has a stroke, I think, and so he's very committed to like being a mariachi. So the guy just picks up and goes to Mexico, and he meets this girl who runs a restaurant down there, and like he's sort of living across the street from her and like befriending her and getting to know her, and he speaks just very little Spanish.
So wait, how is this like a Jedi?
Well, it's like a mentor. It's like an Obi-Wan Kenobi thing.
I was like, I don't remember this version of Star Wars. It may happen though. You never know.
But
now.
like, and he's all gung ho about it. He'll like go into the town square and like play the 2 songs he knows, and like people come up to him like, no, play this one. He's like, I don't know that one. Okay. But like, and what it really was interesting was it taught me like what it actually means to be a mariachi in Mexico. It's not just a guy who plays guitar. There's like, songs that you have to know. There's mariachi songs, and like there's a catalog, and there's different instruments that you play. And like when you get into a band, you're expected to know all these routines that are like standard stuff. And so it like builds and builds, and like his parents want him to come home, and he's trying to get into a mariachi band, and it's interesting. It's good.
Okay.
It's a good movie. I enjoyed watching it. It's kind of fun, but it's a little dark as well. It's like you're watching this guy and you're a little uncomfortable because you don't know if he's going to be okay. Like he's getting hustled by people on the street, and like. You're like, yeah, this guy's not prepared to like hang around Guadalajara, and something bad is going to happen to this guy. But it's a really good movie, Mariachi Gringo. I like that one a lot.
Okay. Well, one that I saw, I don't believe either one of you saw, was Cairo 678.
This film won Best Picture.
It did
at Heartland.
It did, and it is a movie based in Egypt about sexual harassment.
Okay.
And I think this movie is worthy of watching multiple times, just for me at least, to maybe catch everything that was going on. I believe it is based on some factual elements, and it's about 3 different women, and all from different, you could say, social classes in Egypt. So obviously you're dealing with that region of the world, and there are some women who dress certain ways and are raised certain ways, and so you get this woman, and she's in sort of this traditional headdress, and it is has her body covered head to toe, and she goes to work every day, and she has to ride the bus, and she just it's not a glamorous life, one would say, according to maybe American standards, but it's her world, it's her life, and that world kind of collapses on her when multiple times she is harassed sexually on the bus. And basically that could be a guy, grabbing at her, sort of, because these buses are just like stuffed. Mm-hmm. And so guys are using that as an excuse to take advantage of women. And so she kind of starts becoming fed up with this. So she comes up with her own plan. So we'll leave that story there for a second. So then you go to this other perspective of a woman who I believe has a fiance. They go to a soccer game. I think Egypt wins. I think they would react this way one way or the other. But there's essentially, it'd be like if the Cubs won the World Series. Yeah. Like Chicago would burn again. Yeah. That's kind of the reaction that these people have to soccer over there. So, everyone's on the streets. Again, like the bus, everyone's, compact. Somehow these guys grab this girl, pull her away, and, do what they do, whatever. I don't think you actually learn exactly what happens to her, but she's obviously taken advantage of. She's assaulted. Mm-hmm. And so there's sort of that story. And then you learn of another woman who, in the present sense of the word, is trying to help other women deal with these issues, which is a sort of a new thing in Egypt, like women coming forward and saying that they've been sexually assaulted. And so she has these meetings, and she's like, there's a piece of paper in front of you. I have 3 questions for you, sort of like when, where, why. And nobody is admitting to the fact they just keep showing up to these meetings, but they can't say like, I have been sexually assaulted, like, and I want to talk about this. So she's like a therapist in a sense, but you come to find out that at one point she was also sexually assaulted. So you're coming at this from completely different, perspectives. So, and she's kind of a higher class of citizen in Egypt. She's, got money. She, I believe, lives on her own. So she's of wealth. And so she has like a house, like a security guard at the door, that type of thing. And so she's trying to help all these women out. The woman that is assaulted after the soccer game decides to step forward to the press and file charges with the police. But there's nothing funny, obviously, about sexual assault. But what's really funny is that, I guess, since there was no process in Egypt, she basically has to develop one to get the guy to go to jail. And so they somehow get the guy to the jail, and they're like, well, you need to take him here. Like, we won't take him there because we can't arrest him for anything. So you're going to have to take him in your own car, the guy who sexually assaulted you, with like your fiance and your mother, I believe, and take him to the police station and file a report. And so like there's a shot in the movie where he's driving, she's sitting in the middle, and the mom's sitting on the other end of the front seat, and the guy is just kind of like leisurely, like relaxed and laid out in the back seat, like he's like the world of comfort.
Yeah.
And there's something very strange about that.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you're laughing, but at the same time you're like, wait a second, like there's this isn't right at all.
Yeah.
And so she goes through that process, gets the, you know, attention of the media. This is like the first of anybody ever doing this. You know, so that's her story in a sense. And then, you know, the first woman I mentioned, she comes up with the idea that she's going to start stabbing people with needles.
Wow.
So like they, you know, they pinch her, she stabs them. There's a reaction. She's just like, stop touching me. You know, it riles up everybody in the bus. She gets thrown off the bus. You know, it gets to the point where she's, you know, about, you know, possibly going to lose her job. These other two women sort of find out what she's doing. They want to get involved in it. They all sort of come up with this plan to, you know, you're going to, you know, go to court. You're going to, you know, keep stabbing people. I mean, it's not funny, but it is kind of, it is, I mean, it's all she can think of to get these guys to stop touching her. Yeah. And then this other woman really wants to help. So, you know, you've got these three interwoven stories, some other sort of character development with the detective that is trying to figure out what these women are doing. He wants to help them, but at the same time, they're breaking the law. So he has to kind of do his job, but he's sympathetic to him. And so that all sort of comes to a point in the movie where something's got to give, and it does. And so like that whole idea, I hope it comes across as what it is, because it's a really deep movie. There's a lot going on. And I really enjoyed it. It wasn't easy to enjoy for many different reasons, but I mean, I haven't seen everything at Heartland, but if it won Best Picture, then it really should mean something, because it did. It meant something to me, and it means something for, I know, what the Heartland Film Festival tries to do every year. Yeah. Sort of their sort of mission statement. Yeah. It's definitely a movie that makes you feel something, and it doesn't necessarily have to be like an overly happy feeling, but at the same time gives you hope for where the world's going. Yeah. And so I really would recommend it for people to check out. I feel like it's probably going to be a movie that you either will see at the cinema or maybe the rider. Yeah. You'll have access to it in some instance. So it's called Cairo 678, which I believe is the bus number. Oh, okay. I think it's in reference to a bus number. Okay.
Another one that I saw, and this is one that I got to talk to the director earlier, so you might have listened to my interview about Your Side of the Bed. And I really liked this one a lot. This was about a guy who loses his wife in a car accident, and his brother comes to like help him out, and they go on a camping trip, and you think, okay, so this is going to be about him like learning about all this stuff. And then they come back from the camping trip like, you know, half an hour into the movie, and you're like, okay, well, what happens now? Well, his brother tells him at this point that he's leaving his wife. Okay. He has a wife and a kid, and he's like, I'm leaving them. It's over. And so the direction the movie takes at that point is the guy who's lost his wife, it becomes an obsession for him that he has to fix their marriage. It's like he's lost this thing, but he's going to try to, and he can't get it back, but he's going to try to keep everyone else together. And it's just really ill-advised, you know, and it doesn't go well for anyone, because these two, like the you know, his brother has thought this through. It's not just a whim. You know, he's ready to move on. The wife is not ready to take him back, but he's trying to get everyone back together. But it's just a very well-structured story. I mean, you really go on a very serious journey, and an excellent film. An excellent film. I don't want to say too much more about it because, I mean, it is in a lot of ways sort of a straightforward story. Like you sort of get to the place that it wants you to go without any sort of having to interpret things or anything like that. Just a really solid movie, and he's a first-time director. So Jason Jeffrey's the guy's name. I'm sure that he's gonna come up with some interesting stuff in the future. So Your Side of the Bed, really enjoyed that one.
Another film I watched, and I believe you did, Andy, is Rising from Ashes.
Yep, that was the next one I was going to talk about.
Really good movie.
Excellent.
I
yeah.
really, really enjoyed this. It's a documentary.
This won Best Documentary.
Okay, did it?
Yeah.
Awesome. I'm very happy about that. It is narrated by Forrest Whitaker, so it's got that star power behind it. It is about the Rwandan cycling team, which does sound as strange as it probably is.
Yeah.
And hopefully won't be as strange as it is years from now, because they've been working really hard at getting a cycling team and working on getting, one of the guys to the Olympics. And there's a reason for that. There's a very interesting story behind the Rwandan cycling team. Basically, as just a really easy setup, you've got, Jacques Boyer, who was the first American to go to the Tour de France and win the Tour de France, I believe, didn't he?
I don't remember if he won or not.
I don't know if he won or not, but he was definitely sort of the first American to go compete in the European cycling world and do very well at it. And so you learn that he goes to Rwanda, which obviously is, coming off of the genocide at the sort of time of the movie, in the sense that the guys that he's trying to train to cycle have survived that as children.
They were all kids during the genocide.
And so, some of them are better than the others, and, some of them really achieve, what could be greatness, to the point where he decides to continue training them as cyclists. And so they do train as mountain cyclists, which obviously would make sense if you know anything about Rwanda. It's very mountainous and hilly, and then eventually gets them on the road, brings them to the United States, has them compete here. That goes a certain way, then takes them back to Rwanda. That they can see a big difference on where they are when they, from when they started. And like I said, everyone starts sort of shooting off, and you learn that, these guys are really well rooted into the place that they come from.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't want to give too much away, because it's just such a fascinating story. It's just so amazing how these guys rose from what, would be emotional ashes, or even physical ashes in some senses, to where they can support their families, and achieve dreams that they probably never even had imagined before.
Yeah. I think several things I love about the film. I mean, it's about sort of the resurgence of the Rwandan people as they're sort of rebuilding their society after the genocide. It's also about the redemption of their coach.
Right.
So he actually had just gotten out of prison, and the film sort of vaguely alludes to something with some kind of lewd behavior. It was very
with like
vague.
A minor, but
it was very vague about what he actually did. But it's really about his redemption as well. And like, he's doing this not just out of a sense of like it's the right thing to do. It's like he's trying to do something as well. So he's like trying to help them achieve something, and in a sense sort of achieve something from himself. So the film actually spends a lot of time with him, which I really kind of appreciated, because and it talks about his relationship with these guys. And it's almost like stories you hear about like abused children, going from foster home to foster home, and they're like, oh, well, we're just kind of – I'm not going to stick with this because you're just going to leave us like everyone else does. And it's like the aid companies that come – the aid people who bring aid to Rwanda. It's like they show up for a year, maybe two, they run out of money, and they just pack up and go.
Right.
And there's no sustainability there.
Sure.
So they all just kind of assumed that he was going to be like that. And it's like, oh, well, he's just going to go, so I'm not going to stick with this. And it's like it's about him trying to prove to these young guys that he is there for the long haul. And this is what it has. This is what you have to do to get to this level.
Yeah, I don't remember where it starts, but it starts either in 2004 or 2005. I mean, it literally runs straight up until the Olympics.
Yeah.
It's almost disappointing to the fact that you don't follow it through that.
You don't find out what happened to this guy at the Olympics.
But that's a good thing, because it makes you seek out more information about these guys. Like, it just doesn't have a sort of – it ends like – there's more to this story.
The other thing I really loved about it was it really it did a very good job of encapsulating what the conflict that led to the genocide
Right.
was about. Like, I watched that movie last year at Ebert Fest, or earlier this year at Ebert Fest, Kenya, Rwanda, which was about the genocide, but it didn't really talk about at all like what led to it. It was like, you're in it now.
Yeah.
This is what's happening in this world. So it was good to sort of get a really clear sense of like, here's what led up to this. Here's why it happened. Let's go all the way back to the first time when Danish settlers came to Rwanda and started separating people. And why do the Tutsis and the Hutu not get along? And what's the problem? And how is all this happening? So I really, really appreciated that a lot. But just an amazing film. I was very moved by the film.
I was too. Yeah. And that was another one that my wife watched with me, and we watched it just before Halloween, and she had a costume to work on, and she would normally do that upstairs. And I was maybe watching like the first 10 minutes of it. She's like, I'm going to go upstairs and bring all my stuff down here so I can watch this with you.
Yeah.
And she really liked it too.
Yeah.
It's a really fascinating movie.
Yeah.
Just from a section of the world that we've heard so much about, but this one particular thing you've heard so little of, I found fascinating. I like documentaries like that. Like, you think you know everything, and then you're like, I had no idea.
Yeah.
It's almost like those little vignettes they do at the Olympics.
Yeah.
Like it's that, but expanded to like a hour and a half format.
Yeah.
In the best way possible, of course.
So, I mean, I've got a lot of other films that I saw via screeners, but I've talked about pretty much all of them previously. So I'll just say a couple things about Otello Burning. I think was my favorite film that I saw. Maybe Rising from Ashes is right on the same level as it. And I talked about that before. It's about surfing in South Africa, which sounds really pointless, but it's set during apartheid. So these guys are, and these are black South Africans who are not welcome in society. It's like they're not really even supposed to be on the beach.
Yeah.
You know, the beaches are, white only at that point. And so, and it really just builds and builds and turns into like this, it's just really impressive how it all builds up and becomes this amazing thing. But in the first half, you're watching this and you're like, am I watching like an 80s sports movie? Like, is that what's happening right now? But then it becomes so relevant and significant, and I really loved that. And then, let's see, All Me, The Life and Times of Winfried Rembert. I talked about this one as well. It's a documentary about this black artist who grew up in the Jim Crow era in Georgia, and now he sort of discovered this talent for embossing leather and dyeing it. But all his art is about what it was like to grow up in Jim Crow Georgia. So it's just amazing. It's another one of those stories, I think, along the lines of Rising from Ashes, where it's like, I didn't know this story. I didn't know anything about it. So yeah, I mean, those are the other ones that I found really impressive at Heartland. So, I mean, and there's some that I didn't really like at all, but I'll spare those.
Yeah.
It's not fair to talk about them because I didn't watch all of them, because I got through the first half hour of a couple and was like, this one's not going to last.
And there's a lot of positives to getting screeners, and then there are a few negatives. The positives I really enjoy is that once you put it in your player, it just starts playing the movie. Yeah. And it's like, why can't every DVD, like, I'll pay a premium if I can get just the DVD to start as soon as I put it in. Yeah. Because I was just like, oh, the movie started. Like, oh, I got to sit down, and get situated. Because I was expecting there to be a menu on all of them. I think there was only like one of them that had a menu on it. Yeah. To be honest. Yeah. And then the negative thing is that you do just get a smorgasbord of everything, especially foreign films. And so I actually sat down to watch Rising from Ashes, and I sat there and I was just like, oh man, please don't be please have some English, because you just get so burnt out on reading subtitles. Yeah. And it had a good mix of both. And I was just like, finally, because I had just burned through so many foreign movies, Yeah. And I think I may have tweeted that. It's just like you get to the point where it's just like you have the access to every movie possible. Yeah. But at the same time, you're just kind of like, you kind of want a movie where you have to shut your brain off. Yeah, exactly. And those are few and far between. And that's a good thing, because these movies are meant to move you in ways that, it hooks you. Yeah. And so, then you got to you got to kind of build spots where you watch something pointless. You know, like Aliens was that for me. Like, I didn't, you know, it's not a pointless movie, but it's definitely one you're just kind of like, you can do that with. And so I needed to use that as my my festival crutch. Yeah. You know, stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, I was really impressed by the selections at Heartland this year. I was really, really happy with almost everything I saw. And even the ones that I, was just sort of so-so on, there were still good aspects of them. So, yeah, I'm just really impressed with Heartland this year.
Me too.
Yeah.
All right. Well, after this marathon of an episode, I think we should get out of here. So thank you guys for listening. Thanks, Sarah, for sitting down with us. Did you enjoy what Heartland you got to go to?
I did. I would have loved to go to more Heartland. Yeah. Hopefully the vehicle will be fixed by next year.
Yeah.
Maybe stay a little bit longer.
Yeah,
or
possibly.
Visit a couple more days.
Possibly. All right. Well, let's get out of here. So I'm Andy.
And I'm Jason.
This has been, and always will be, A Place for Film. A Place for Film is recorded at WFIU Studios in Bloomington, Indiana.